The hundreds of marshals assigned to curb outbreaks of violence had very little to do.
But the only excitement we get is from all these helicopters. They seem to be as thick as state troopers in Mississippi around this area. The day is somehow so respectable and well ordered that it's really rather dull. Compared to the battles that have been fought, this is really more like a convention of veterans who've already fought their war, and now they've gathered for some rather self-congratulatory speeches.
My friends, let us not forget.
One speech everyone was nervous about was from a young John Lewis, then the head of the Militant Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Lewis attacked politicians of all persuasions for what they had not done.
We are tired. We are tired of being beaten by policemen. We are tired of seeing our people locked up in jail over and over again. And then you holler, be patient. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom, and we want it now.
Ironically, the young radical of that day was later elected to Congress and became a prominent member of the Washington establishment he'd scorned back in 1963. His anger has turned to pride.
The March on Washington probably was the finest hour of the movement, when you had more than 250,000 Americans, blacks and whites, young and old, rich and poor, people from all over America, coming here, demanding of the federal government, petition the federal government to move fast, to correct some of the ills and some of the wrongs.
The congressional establishment was mostly white and male in 1963, but some of it was represented in the march, and those who didn't come felt as strongly about their views as those who marched.
Negroes have as many rights in this country as other people. I don't know of any place where they have as good housing, as many refrigerators, as many automobiles, as many dishwashers and washing machines as here in the United States.
I do not think it would help any group attain that goal by making a march on Washington in such numbers, in which the key word is demand.
The demand of the petition is a constitutional right. It's almost the highest right we have in the Bill of Rights. Right of all Americans peaceably to assemble and to petition for redress of grievances.
Fully a quarter of the demonstrators at the march were white, and politicians and entertainers came in support. Some of the day's strongest words came from labor leader Walter Reuther.
I am for civil rights because I believe that freedom is an indivisible value, that no one can be free unto himself. And when Bull Connor with his police dogs and fire hoses destroys freedom in Birmingham, he is destroying my freedom in Detroit. We cannot defend freedom in Berlin so long as we deny freedom in Birmingham.
The man that was aimed at, President Kennedy, chose to spend the day at the White House, not willing to risk the political repercussions of an appearance at the march. But like many other Americans, he was watching and listening to Martin Luther King.
At this time, I have the honor to present to you the moral leader of our nation, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination 100 years later. The Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. That is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is higher than our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities. Knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. In Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring when the capital. When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
That day in August 1963 was in many ways the high watermark of the civil rights movement. It helped pave the way for passage of the Civil Rights Bill the following year. No one predicted in the mid-1960s that the struggle for racial justice would soon splinter into factions of discord and strife. Nor could Dr. King foresee that his own journey through those future storms would be so brief. In 1963, he was only 34 years old, with 5 years left to live.
So somehow this morning we wonder.
That'll bring us to another time. Hit the lights, please, Mary. Tomorrow, make sure we meet in the Commons. This will not take very long, if you have your stuff together. But refer to the website if you have any troubles whatsoever.